Let that sink in for just a moment and realize that our Puritan forefathers said, you worship God and please Him when you seek to achieve wealth by just means. It is a godly calling to become successful if you've done it in a godly way. How out of sync that is with most of what we hear in the ethics of seminary teaching and in our culture that says some type of socialism is the norm of a Christian. This was not the Puritan tradition. Pursuing wealth by God's means, wealth to the glory of God, is actually an act of worship. There is special worship on the Sabbath day, and there's general worship every other day. And when we pursue wealth by godly means, we achieve an act of worship that blesses the world. Okay? Agree or disagree? That is why Adam Smith, in a country that actually followed to some extent this ethic, said we better talk about what economics are. And that is why then Max Weber said, what makes the Puritan or Protestant or Calvinistic tradition such a business-minded culture? And who was Marx really after at the end of the day but this Puritan tradition that had formed the West? Okay, thank you.
Wayne, do you have any thoughts you'd like to add?
Well, I'm just happy to see that the Westminster Larger Catechism, Peter, the very sentence that you emphasized, I had put an asterisk and an underline in. I'm happy to see that the Westminster Larger Catechism tells me that it is obedience to God to endeavor to further the wealth of others as well as our own. Make money, and as well as helping others make money. In other words, it's obedience to God to seek win-win business transactions. And I don't know how many times people in the business world, John can confirm or deny this, have told me that the successful people in business are those who understand that a good deal is one that benefits both parties. And that's exactly what the Westminster Larger Catechism is saying. It seems to me that is a very perceptive and wise insight into the Eighth Commandment, you shall not steal. As you said yesterday, as I affirmed last night, the idea that I shall not steal your computer or your car, your ox, your donkey, assumes that that belongs to you. It assumes the idea of private property. It seems to me, therefore, that the idea of profit is also built into the idea of private property. That is, if I bake 100 loaves of bread, they're still my loaves of bread as a baker. And I don't have any obligation, if I have private property, I don't have any obligation to let you have one of those loaves of bread unless I want to. And if it costs me $2, I don't want to give them to you for $2. I want to give them to you for $3 or $4 where I'm making a profit. So that the idea that I own what I have produced and made, and then I have control over it, that means that in order to release control, it has to be voluntary. And you have to therefore persuade me by offering a higher price that it's a good thing for me to give it up. Is that making sense? Therefore, the idea of ownership of property and the fact that I can control whether I give it away or not assumes that there will be profit, because otherwise people wouldn't produce things that they would willingly give up.
Implicit in what you've said is, and that's why compassion is such a virtue, is because you deny yourself out of good. It's not something that is mandated. It's something you willingly give up to love someone because you have something of value and say, I give it to you. Right. So it's implicit. Even compassion is a virtue precisely because of private ownership.
But there is a balancing act going on, isn't there? Because if all I did was produce goods to give away and didn't gain profit for myself, I'd go out of business and I wouldn't advance the wealth of myself. But if all I did was seek, as Chuck said just in the previous hour, am I going into business to make all I possibly can make in order to produce, or in order to produce something of value for people, of benefit to them? If my goal is just all the profit I can make for myself and not seeking to do good for others, then people will sense that, and I will not be successful in my business either. They'll feel like I'm ripping them off. When Barry Asmus and I were in Albania a year ago, one of the complaints that we heard from people there, where we talked about reforming the cultural, and economic atmosphere of a nation, was they said too many times people in Albania in business have the idea of getting as much money from the customer as you can, and they had a little proverb of shear the sheep while you have them. And so take as much money from the person as you can, rather than seeking to do good for others and realizing that in so doing you will benefit yourself. So that seems to me, I don't know how exactly we decide what is the right balance, but it seems to me that the goal is, yes, bringing profit to myself, but those businesses that are successful are motivated by trying to serve other people and bring something of value to them. And then there is profit.
Well, it also really doesn't serve the community to not live in a good community. Nobody wants to live in a bad community. If you're a businessman, you want people to flourish all around you that can buy your products and contribute to the good of the whole. Another thought on this too is that I think there's often a mistaken implication that people that are very wealthy somehow dissipate all that wealth. Whether you're a Christian or not, you're a steward over the things God has given you, whether it's material or gifts and talents and so on. So really, people that have accumulated a lot of capital just decide where it's going to be deployed. They don't eat it or anything, and it's not hidden in the ground usually. It's invested somewhere, So the question for us is, where will it be deployed for the good of all, for human flourishing, that kind of thing?